So, in the previous two lectures, I talked about the life and the events of Aristotle, and after that, the five methodology of Aristotle, and then I talked about the brief. I have given you the briefing about his two major writings, that is the Nicomachean Ethics and the Politics. So today I'm going to talk about the relationship between Plato and Aristotle, and after that, breaking away from Plato. So the first thing you need to know is Aristotle was the pupil of Plato. Aristotle was the greatest pupil of Plato. The influence was so deep and lasting that he differed uh, mainly in detail than in fundamentals. So you will find in the further discussion of this Plato on the Aristotle, and he was the student of Plato, and you will find a deep influence on Plato. Aristotle is known as the best and the first Platonist. Uh, Plato provided most of the philosophical content which was refined and presented in a scientific and systematic manner by Aristotle. So you will find his philosophical content is in very defined way, and he has presented it in a scientific and systematic manner. So now we'll talk about the breaking away from Plato. So, what were the reasons and factor behind and how Aristotle is breaking away from Plato? So, as a pupil, Aristotle never missed any opportunity of criticizing his tutor. So, still Plato was his master, uh, teacher, but whenever the opportunity was there, he criticized his tutor. He felt a sort of pleasure in probing into disagreements rather than the points of agreement with his teacher. You will find the Aristotle was realist in his approach, and whereas the Plato was idealist. So this is a major differences, and yet it is a matter of fact that the fundamentals of his political philosophy are same as those of Plato. So fundamentals that you will look into the philosophy of both the Plato and Aristotle is same, but they are differing in their ideology. The difference only rose because Aristotle was not a blind follower of Plato and was a realist rather than an idealist, which I told you. So this was a major difference between them. The Aristotle was a realist and the Plato was idealist. So now I will talk about the main difference between the two, the intellectual makeup and the reasoning process of the two refers to the Plato and Aristotle was totally different, you will find. If Plato was preeminently a radical thinker, then Aristotle was decidedly conservative in his political opinion. So, if you will find Plato as a radical thinker, so on that line you will find the Aristotle was conservative in his political opinion. Uh, Plato wishes for the change at the one go, and the Aristotle slow and gradual. So, while Plato used this deductive method, and Aristotle followed the inductive method, just opposite to each other. Okay. Do you know the differences between deductive and inductive?
No, sir.
डिडक्टिव में ये हो गया कि आप जनरल से पर्टिकुलर की तरफ जा रहे हैं जैसे कि इफ यू हैव द लार्जर एरिया समथिंग द बिगर इमेज and just you are reaching at some uh, small or the sum of the parts of it or its crux, like having a story, and from the story you are reaching to the character of certain things or the summary of that. Will you able to understand?
Yes, sir.
And in inductive like that, ki certain lines have been given or the words, and you are creating the story on the basis of that, the larger picture.
So can you again tell me the inductive method?
It's very simple. Deductive, you will reach at the certain end just by deducting the things from the bundle of the goods. Uh, and in this inductive, you will add on the things and that to reach at your journey. As Plato started with abstract notions of justice, so and virtue, and on the basis of this constructed an ideal state. That though I already talked about when I delivered the lecture on the Plato, its notions of justice and the virtue, and on that basis he constructed the concept of an ideal state. Aristotle reasoned inductively by comparing and analyzing the working institutions of a large number of city states that it, that actually existed in his own time. As I yesterday told you, Plato studied uh, the constitution of 158 countries that was prevalent at that point of the time, and even he has done the comparative study of the 158 constitution and then analyzed it. So on that basis, he developed his ideology. Plato proceeded from ideal to particular. प्लेटो प्रोसीड कहाँ करते हैं आइडियल से पर्टिकुलर की तरफ और वहीं पे जो एरिस्टोटल है वो एरिस्टोटल्स प्रोसेस वाज फ्रॉम द पर्टिकुलर टू कंक्रीट टू द यूनिवर्सल एक पर्टिकुलर से वो कहाँ यूनिवर्सल तक के लिए पहुंच रहे हैं and ये वाला जो statement है that is totally based on this deductive and inductive method. Ideal से particular specifying the things और वहीं पे जो एरिस्टोटल है particular से concrete to the universe moving towards the larger interest. If Plato used a speculative method, uh, Aristotle's chief reliance was on the observation, empiricism, and comparison, which I briefed you yesterday only. Plato was a philosopher, while Aristotle, as a scientist, systematized the existing knowledge. The two differences: Plato was a philosopher, and thus Aristotle as a scientist systematized the existing knowledge, whatever was in existence in practice by observing it, not only in politics but in many other fields also, like the biology and zoology. Already, I talked about all these things in the last lectures. Uh, Now, last but not the least, if Plato subordinated politics into ethics, it was Aristotle who gave the place of right to politics. So this is a major difference. Plato has subordinated the politics to ethics, but Aristotle, who has given the open space and the pride to politics. So now onwards, we'll talk about this Aristotle views. Aristotle, as the father of political science, successfully integrated his views on politics in a systematic manner by employing the methods of teleology, syllogism, and comparative analysis. He explained the origin and ethical region of the state, how this state has come into existence, and the ethical region for the state. So he defined citizenship, justified domestic slavery, and put forward a distributive view of justice. So his view of justice was which kind? Distributive. And his major contribution in this classification of constitution and the cycle of change. So first we will talk about this Aristotle views on state. Uh, According to Aristotle, the state is the highest association of families and villages. ये states जो है एक तरीके का highest association है families और villages का. First, the family comes, and then the along with the groupings of the families, then the villages comes, and along with the association of villages, then the estate comes on the hierarchy. And why does it exist? So it exists for the sake of a good life. So इसका main purpose क्या है state का? It exists for the purpose of good life and not for the sake of life only. So this is clear. This state is in existence for the sake of a good life. So an individual can lead a good life, and it's not for the sake of life only. So the next thing, the human community is a complex interrelationship of three different kinds. So you will find in the human community, it's a very complex. You will find a very complex interrelationship of three different kinds, which Aristotle talked about. Number one is the simplest of them, evolving teleologically into more complex. So, in this process, the primary unit is the family. The primary unit is the family or household. With the passage of time, various families unite into form a village that unites with other villages to form the polis, which I briefed you just a minute ago. So here जो प्राइमरी यूनिट है वो फैमिली है या हाउस होल्ड है और फिर उसके बाद पैसेज ऑफ टाइम में यही वेरियस फैमिलीज यूनाइट ऑल टुगेदर एंड दे फॉर्म अ विलेज एंड दिस वे the family or the household is the primary unit, and then the village comes at the middle level, and then at the hierarchy the estate, that is the polis. In historical terms, of course, the family and village are prior to the state. So, if we'll talk about in historical terms, then ये family और village जो है वो state से पहले आते हैं. But in teleological terms, the opposite is the case. Or if we'll talk about in teleological terms at the goal, at the end objectives, so the case is just opposite. So teleologically, a state is the end towards, a state is the ends toward uh, which individual social life ultimately aims. So अगर हम टेलोलॉजिकली बात करें तो स्टेट जो है वो एक एंड है किसके लिए फॉर द इंडिविजुअल जो एक इंडिविजुअल्स के सोशल लाइफ का जो एक एम होता है उसका एंड है वो लास्ट गोल as the briefing about this, I talked about the three different kinds. The first is this primary, that is the family or the household, and then comes this village, and then this polis, the hierarchy, the state. In historical terms, the family and the village are prior to the states, and the third is teleologically. This state is the end towards which individual social life ultimately aims. So, since the state is the final end, is the final end, so other kinds of associations like family and the village are subordinate to them. So, जब स्टेट जो है वो फाइनल है हायरार्की पे है तो then in this scenario जो other kind of associations होंगे जैसे कि family or village वो state के subordinate होंगे, they will come under the state and are simply stages leading ultimately to this vast complete form of association. Uh, During the earlier two stages, individuals' life is still incomplete. In the previous two state, which are two stages, which I talked about, but it is only when man becomes the member of the state, he attains full self-sufficiency. So, जो primary और जो आपको मैंने historical बताया, वहाँ पे individual जो है वो incomplete है. And an individual is becoming complete only in the teleologically form when the state is there. It is only when man becomes the member of the state that he attains full sufficiency. So जैसे ही individual state का member बनता है, he attains the full self sufficiency. The state marks the final stage in the process of natural growth. और ये स्टेट जो है वो क्या डिपिक्ट करता है कि जो प्रोसेस है नेचुरल ग्रोथ का उसमें स्टेट जो है वो फाइनल स्टेज है एंड हेंस police or the state is natural to man or this is the reason behind the police or the state police polis that is refers to the Greek city state uh, is natural to man. So, is this clear to everyone? And now we will talk about the statement that which Aristotle says man is a socio-political animal. What does it mean? Jew, this politikon. Any question till now? So, man is a political animal, June politikon, and polis is meant for man not for goods and beasts. So ये जो polis refers to the Greek city state is meant for the man, not for the god and beast. So in other words, we can say some human beings, that is beasts, are too bad for the polis, and the super beings, gods, are too good for it. Both are not natural like man. Uh, Further, Aristotle regards a state as an organic association. In an organic unity, each organ performs a separate function. Uh, Organic association में क्या होता है? You will find the homogeneity, and they are performing a separate function in this organic unity. You will find each organ is performing a separate function. हर एक organ जो है वो अपना अपना काम करता है जो उनका separate function है and is dependent upon the whole to which it belongs for its life. The individual who are the part of the estate are not only dependent upon it for for their fullness of life, but Aristotle goes further to say that individuals are dependent upon the estate for their very life. अ, जैसा कि मैंने आपको बताया कि एरिस्टोटल जो है वो स्टेट को कैसे व्यू करते हैं एज एन ऑर्गेनिक एसोसिएशन होमोजेनिटी एंड यहाँ पे क्या है कि हर एक ऑर्गन जो है जैसे अगर आप अभी के टाइम पे देखें लेजिस्लेटिव एग्जीक्यूटिव जुडिशरी वो अपना एक सेपरेट फंक्शन परफॉर्म करते हैं और वो डिपेंडेंट होते हैं किस पे होल टू इट्स बिलोंग्स फॉर इट्स लाइफ ऑन स्टेट मतलब इंडिविजुअल्स जो इंडिविजुअल होते हैं स्टेट में इंडिविजुअल्स जो हैं वो स्टेट के पार्ट हैं एंड वो they are not only dependent upon the state for the fulfillness of their life कि उनकी life fulfill self sufficiency रहे but Aristotle goes further and says what individuals are dependent upon the state for their very life. So, an individual is totally dependent upon the state for the security, for their self sufficiency, and the full development, and so many things. Uh, by this, he does with an analogy of a human body and its organ to the state and its citizen. So ऐसा वो एक करते हैं क्या an analogy of human body जैसा कि आप human body को देखते हैं उसमें hands, eyes and जो उसके they are comparing with it its organ to the state just like human body के जो organs है they are comparing it with the organs to the state and its citizens. So an individual is dependent upon the state as absolutely as a hand or a foot is dependent upon the body. So he is depicting this by the analogy of human body. एक इंडिविजुअल जो है वो स्टेट पे उसी तरीके से डिपेंडेंट है टोटली और दी एब्सोल्युटली जैसा कि हैंड और फुट जो है एक इंडिविजुअल का वो डिपेंडेंट है बॉडी के ऊपर जैसे कि हमारे आपके हाथ और पाँव और पूरी बॉडी पे डिपेंडेंट है हाउ टू परफॉर्म एंड ईच थिंग ठीक उसी तरीके से एक इंडिविजुअल जो है वो स्टेट पे डिपेंडेंट he exists not in its life and has no meaning or exercise except as sharing in its life. Uh, this syllogism leads Aristotle to the main conclusion that the state is prior to the individual. And already I explained this statement while I was explaining to you the statements over the textual and the approach. Uh, One thing is prior to another when it has first to be present to the consciousness. For an example, A triangle is prior to the right angle. Triangle आपने देखा है जिसमें तीन sides होते हैं. A right angle आपने देखा है straight line होता है perpendicular के ऊपर, which is a straight 90 degree. So just I'm giving you the example, the statement which I say to you. The one thing is prior to another when it has first to be present to the consciousness. So, for an example, as I have given you the two examples, a triangle is prior to right angle. Or I can give you another example. A circle is prior to semicircle. Uh, they are the holes which must be present uh, to the consciousness for the definitions of the part. Uh, to define man therefore involves the prior idea of the state to which he is related as a part of the whole. So you can understand this by the previous example which I have given you. Triangle comes before the right angle and the circle is prior to semicircle. So here the state is prior to the individual. Uh, why? The state is prior to individual. Why? Because the state is present to our consciousness as an idea before we think of the individual. So we'll tell you the main characteristics of the Aristotle theory of the state, which are number one, the state is a natural association. State क्या है? एक तरीके का natural association जो मेन कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स है एरिस्टोटल के थियरी ऑफ स्टेट्स का. State is natural association, and the second state is the highest association of associations, which I explained you by the three kind of statements: the unitary and the historical and the teleological. Third, it is the only as a functional member of the state. It is only as a functional member of the state that an individual attains self-sufficiency. So only in the state an individual attains self-sufficiency. And the fourth thing, the state is prior to individual. So this was the Aristotle views on